Hey everybody, welcome to the BA Zones pre-show. It's 7:55. We're going to get going here in 5 minutes. And tonight we're going to be talking about, or maybe arguing about, probably not, the top three business analyst myths, and we're going to debunk those. And it was so funny because I was just out cruising around on the internet, sort of looking at all these myths that are out there and that have been debunked or proven not to be true. So if you have any that you know of, please just chime in and let us know. Hope everybody had a terrific weekend, the long extended weekend with family and friends. The weather's sort of been killer out in the Midwest. It's just been awful with these tornadoes and things, but hope everybody's getting by and hopefully you get what you need out there. It's been pretty bad. Okay, let's see. Myths. Let's talk about a myth. So I was just on the internet here and I was looking up a myth that's been debunked. And here's one: a penny dropped from the Empire State Building can kill a person on the sidewalk. Now, I have heard this. I've heard that, all my life, but they're saying not true. This is a myth that's been debunked. So we learn a little something different on the BA Zone Live. So apparently, it's it has to do with physics. A penny will reach terminal velocity of about 30 to 100 miles per hour, depending on the wind. So it won't kill anyone, but it would certainly hurt. Mm-hmm. I don't know. A penny cruising down at about 100 miles an hour, I got to think if you're looking up, hits you in the eye, it'll kill you. But they've debunked it. Maybe they're thinking hit you in the head or whatever. If it hits you just right, it's all fun and games till somebody, puts their eye out. But yeah, that's one of the popular myths debunked. And there's a whole bunch of them out there that science, they've proved with science. Let's see what else we can find here. Lightning never strikes the same place twice. Oh, that is really wrong. That's really wrong. So it's like bad wrong. It often strikes in the same place twice, or within the same vicinity. So, if you find yourself standing there and you get hit once, try to crawl away before you might get hit again. So, yeah, lightning can strike twice. Let's see. That's a good one. What do we've got going here? We've got 2 minutes. I have to pay attention to the time while we're entertaining ourselves. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Some other kind of, not some other good ones. But anyway, so if you have any, bats are blind. Huh. That's not true. They see in black and white. And at night, they see better than we do. They just lack color receptors. So there you go. So you're not blind as a bat. You're just sort of old-timey TV, black and white. So that's kind of fun. All right, these are all kind of fun. So we've got 2 minutes to go. So how did your week go? You guys having any problems out there or any issues you want to discuss? Feel free to, chime in and we can discuss. And Kathleen is playing with the back end stuff and she's taking care of all our good stuff. I am finally physically upright. I was off for quite a few weeks. Actually, last week's show we did on Wednesday to celebrate my mother's 92nd birthday on Tuesday. Yes, she had me when she was very old. That's not true at all either. But so we did the show on Wednesday. We had a good time. It was it's a little different being out there in an unusual time slot, but I'm back. And prior to that, Kathleen was covering because I had put my back out. And I don't know if you've ever put your back out, but it can be really painful trying to sit. So, and really, they should never film, women of a certain age laying down. So we couldn't have the camera overhead, because all of this kind of just falls back to your ears and makes you look like you have a football player neck. And on that note, it is 8:00. It is time. Hello, everyone, and welcome. We were just playing around with our pre-show. Welcome to the BA Zone Live. I hope everyone enjoyed, again, their long weekend and had time for family and friends. Tonight, we're going to spend some time debunking the top business analyst myths that we continue to hear about out in the industry and our profession. They are our Area 51 Bigfoot Loch Ness monster of our profession. Are they real? And what can we do when we run into them? And we're going to find out. But before we do that, let's introduce ourselves. I'm Marianne Morrison. Kathleen Sinnott is managing our production booth and our X Files in the background. And together we are the BA Zone. If you have any comments or questions during the show, just jump right in. Or if you just want to hang with us and share a myth of your own, feel free to do that. That's fine. Everybody's welcome. So make yourself comfortable, relax, and open up your mind while Kathleen kicks off the show's intro. Kathleen? Okay, so what is a myth? A myth is a wildly held um, but false belief or idea. So it's sort of been disproven. And we're going to mention a few tonight. We're going to disprove them for you. So when it comes to the business analyst myth, they have been and continue to be used sort of selectively to perpetuate control or allow certain behaviors to exist within an organization. So the first BA myth that we're going to talk about is BAs slow down projects with too much documentation and process. We need to be more agile. We hear that all the time. This is called the anchor holding the ship myth. Well, that's what I like to call it anyway. So, how did this myth sort of get started and perpetuate? Uh, the same people who say these sort of things are the same people who really don't understand the importance of requirements. Maybe they had a bad experience with a BA. Maybe they contracted with a company that provides BAs and it was an expensive endeavor that really didn't produce much. Maybe they've had inexperience or BAs that are just not really very good in the past. Maybe they created overcomplicated or ambiguous requirements. They didn't ask enough questions. They just didn't know what the heck they were doing. And we come across a lot of those folks that call themselves BAs that, really don't know what they're doing. Happens in every profession, not just BAs. Maybe the development team is an immature team, or they may be more controlling or believe that they're the only ones that are capable of getting the project over the goal line. And it may be other executives as well, not just development, to pick on development. But what it all gets back to is not understanding the value and importance of the requirements. So, what do those requirements give you, and how can you answer and to debunk this myth yourself? Um, Requirements provide communication understanding first and foremost. They enable everyone to share and view goals in the same way. What are the client or the user goals, not just the functional goals. Users have no problem telling you what they want, but that may not be exactly what they need or actually what they need. And how do those wants actually align with the business goals? And how does it relate to other departments or other flows or other parts of the business? BAs have training and skills just like a developer or a quality assurance person. And they use these skills to make sure that they're getting everything documented in answers. Users will leave out information if they're speaking to a developer because they may assume that this particular thing they're leaving out is obvious, which leads to missed requirements that show up later in the software development lifecycle. They could show up in the testing, during testing, and they can cause a lot of delays, extra costs, and future work. So it's just not providing that functionality. It's understanding and communicating what's going on. Um, right along with that is there's this sort of, with requirements, a micro view that somebody might have versus the requirements macro view of the business. So if you're only looking at functional needs, that micro view, or if the functional needs are not clearly defined, you're always going to be reactive, which impacts the cost and the time and your reputation, basically, the company's reputation. You want a requirements document is also going to provide that macro view, that business view. Why is it needed? Not just how it should be delivered. What is the full context around why this requirement is being asked for? So you don't want to just look at fixing pain points. Fixing pain points is a really good goal, but there may be a reason around why something is being done. Maybe you can improve on it, maybe you can't, you know, but how would you know unless you really got a little more in depth than what would currently occur if you were not using a business analyst to get those requirements? And overall, on a macro level, how does this particular request or project relate to the broader perspective of the product roadmap? Um, that is some of the things the requirements will give you. It'll also give you a multi-role view and all of the interrelationships that are happening, which is going to lead to a higher quality software. If you're dealing in those business processes as well, but we're talking about software here specifically. And having this multi-role view mitigates some hidden agendas that could occur. So, for example, and I'm using developers here because this happens a lot. If there's no BA, developers take on the role of BA. Sometimes the product manager does, or the project manager, and they all have skill sets of their own. And it may not be that they excel in the business analyst skill set. So, if I'm using a developer as an example, and a user deals directly with the developer, maybe it's a client, maybe that client or that particular team member who he's getting information from has a hidden agenda. Maybe they want to become, over product manager, project manager, whatever, and they become best buds with the developer, and the developer then only listens to that person, and that person might put a bug in his ear that someone else is not, they don't know what they're talking about, don't deal with them. The developer absolutely has no idea what's going on. He's taking it or she is taking it at face value. So you really want to have the requirement document, which will sort of eliminate that, because you're including more people. And it's a better solution. What more people you include, the more perspectives you get. Uh, the requirements document will give the product continuity. It's going to remove ambiguity by documenting how something, the why of something, how it should be functioning, the terminology used, how it impacts downstream processes and functionalities that may affect interoperability, performance, security, usability, availability, etc. Also, if you're dealing with a global team, you absolutely have to have requirements. People need to know who's doing what, why they're doing it, and how it all fits together. And quality assurance definitely needs it so that they can build their test cases out. Once you start, a little bit of scope creep, could you add this here? Could you just add this little something there? And it's not done in a controlled way through the document. You will have everyone assuming that something is working in a particular way, and it's not, because it's not documented. Nobody else talked about it. We just kind of put it in there. And then you're building future requirements off of something that doesn't even exist. So it's not good not to have a requirements document. And the requirements document is also going to set expectations. It's also going to say how long this is going to take. How much will it cost? Are we hitting timelines and targets? How do we know when we're done? That's a big one, at least for this iteration. How do you know you're done if you don't have something documented that said, we're going from here to here and we're doing this specifically? The requirements document is what you measure against. So if you want a shorter time delivery and less rewrites, you should use a requirements document. Have it documented. The time you take up front, and we never really get enough time up front. It's a lot of logic that we have to go through. It's a lot of thinking of all the different potential solutions. But if they do take the time to put, I'm not talking a lot of time either. That doesn't have to be months. But if you take that time up front, it's going to require less development time in the form of rewrites and fixes because something was misunderstood, or it's going to provide more complete test cases, which We'll get that testing done, training and development, deployment, I should say, will have less questions, and there'll be prior exposure via a business analyst to that. So overall, when you're setting expectations, it's going to reduce scope creep and reduce wasted effort on needless requirements that don't work towards a common goal. And then finally, around having those requirements and the importance of having those requirements is sustainability and scalability. Yeah, say that 10 times fast. Clients change their mind. Businesses change. We do have to be agile to that. Um, you need a strong foundation with the requirements in order to build and respond quickly to those changes. People leave organizations all of the time, and that knowledge goes with their head right out the door if it's not documented. And without existing requirements, the impact of proposed and actual change requests or enhancements can be costly and risky because there's nothing to compare it against. So, how do we fix this as business analysts? We really have to show them the difference between good documentation and bad documentation. So if their experience has been that it's just, hundreds of pages, and there, if it's a government contract or a government requirement, there could be thousands of pages, not just hundreds. I mean, depending on what line or what industry you get into. But we need to show them the good between the bad. So if they have bad documentation, I would suggest that you review one of their more current documentation. If you see that it's missing pieces or it's inadequate in any way, and maybe it didn't deliver on time, or maybe it had a bad outcome. You sort of want to perform this post-mortem, right? And dissect that document. Show them the contradictions, the incomplete areas, the ambiguous areas, questions that were never asked or answered, areas that are still broken or inefficient as a result of that particular requirement document. Then show them how it could have been done better. Take a piece and say, look, I think we should do this. And start to increase your value at the organization that you're working at. Make that document as concise and understandable for your entire audience. You do that from the requirements perspective, and you begin to show value. Another way you can begin to debunk that particular myth in the area of interrelations with different departments. For example, if a client has been dealing only with a developer, and whether you're only dealing with a developer or only dealing with a BA that you get used to, it's hard to break that cycle to go with someone else. So this can be a little, it's sort of a trust thing. It's a proven thing over time. But for the developer, developers who are dealing directly with clients, they like it. They do like getting that instant feedback, that instant gratification. Everybody does, right? Everybody wants to know they're doing a good job. But at some point, they're going to get pretty sick of that bad attention that happens because things are moving too quickly. Things weren't documented. Nobody, it sort of gets a little skew and they start to have to make excuses. That's where you can come in and be the buffer for the developer. It doesn't mean that developer is not going to have any control. They certainly do have control, but it's more of a collaboration with you being the buffer in between the developer and the client. So, you want to sort of analyze that time and that money spent and show management that, okay, look, we're doing this and things are working much better. So you have to put yourself out there. You have to work on these things and have, the guts or the spunk to actually show them. Sit down and say, look, this is the better outcome after each release or each push. Do that post-mortem, do that dissection, and show how you are improving the process, how BAs, the documentation doesn't slow the process down. Initially, it might until everything gets up and running. But once it does, it's going to move much faster and much more efficiently. Okay, so let me just take a quick sneak peek. Everything going good? Everything's fine with Kathleen. She hasn't broken down. She's very good. Sometimes we lose sound, it's live. So I always have to check back periodically. Okay. Myth number 2. And by the way, these are in no particular order. BAs document requirements, they don't design solutions. Okay, of course we do, but we don't do it alone, right? BAs present solutions or solution options to users and clients all the time. We use it to clarify issues, elicit additional requirements, validate user needs, a whole list of things. This myth, this is the myth of the note taker, this concept that we're sort of secretaries, not to disparage secretaries and in any way. We all know that they sort of run businesses as well. But this concept that we sit in a room and we just document the solutions that everybody sort of tells us what to do. If to and this is sort of like it may occur if you're a very new BA and you're sort of a little reticent, you're not sure how to go about doing this. It could potentially happen. But, if you're out there for a while and through experience, you are certainly providing a lot of optional solutions for folks. And a lot of times it's bouncing ideas off them so you can get a deeper dive into what their needs actually are. So how did this myth sort of get started? I think this myth is sort of perpetuated by people who focus on title over skill sets. Uh, you know, Web designers or developers, everybody's sort of caught up with titles and not these skill sets. And this may stem primarily from the belief or another myth in itself that anyone can document requirements. It doesn't take any special skill set. So why would BAs have any user interface skill sets? Why would they do that? Because it's not sort of required of them. It's not a skill set that they would typically have. And again, younger BAs and experienced BAs, probably. Um, if you're a junior, you may sort of be a passive note taker until you get that confidence built up. But BAs with past experiences, um, uh, it's a skill set. Being able to create comps and wireframes is a skill set that you can acquire, and it shouldn't be a foregone conclusion that developers, have any UI or UX experience. They may not have that experience either. Maybe from long term creating creating interfaces. They might not have any formal training in that either. So, the feeling that the developer or the web designer, uh, they may feel that if you do have a developer or a web designer, that you creating as the BA web pages or comps or wireframes may be usurping their area of expertise. So sometimes they feel a little bit of a loss of control, or perhaps the entire software is already built. It's been designed. It's been documented beforehand. Um, and there is no room to change that design. They feel like this is my baby, and I really don't want anybody touching it. So it's a lot of fear going on. Sometimes it's ego that is sort of perpetuating this myth that BAs should stick to business requirements and don't worry about that design of the solution. In my opinion, everybody wants to define what a business analyst is. A business analyst, to me, is defined by their skill set and their limitless potential. One of those skills is to design potential solutions for the user or the client to consider, to react to, uh, and ultimately uncover requirements that no one was even thinking about. We are the closest to the clients or the users when we are typically in place. Maybe besides an account manager or a rep, and oftentimes we even work with them. And we need to provide complete requirements to improve business performance and the user experience. We put it all together, And if you're a BA working on a software requirements, it's kind of essential that you flesh that software out. Stakeholders, they need to make informed business decisions, and developers need to be able to see the bigger picture. Developers are not going to get that by speaking to a user or two out of context. So we create these comps, but we absolutely shouldn't do it or present solutions without input from development or QA, maybe a project manager if we have one. You know, creativity can still exist for the developer and for the BA. It just has to be done in collaboration. And you need to create this circle of trust all around. You got to be in the nest. We're all in the nest. And we sort of have to have respect for those learning and those that already have these skill sets, even if their title doesn't say they should have them, right? It's not looking about that, not at that title. It's looking at what they have to offer. And, to keep everybody honest, everyone signs off on a requirements doc and the design doc. We put a lot of comps into our requirements docs. Again, to have these conversations with developers to make sure we're all on the same page and the outcome is going to satisfy the user needs. There can be minor changes. We're all going in, but we never really go to a client without first talking to the developer. So, design away, hone your BA skill set and then take some, if you want, take some UI, UX classes to enable you to create wireframes, comps. If nothing else, it'll help you flesh out your use cases. Lord knows that's what I've been doing for the past 2 weeks, is working on comps, which are uncovering use cases that I would not have found if I had not done those comps or wireframes. So build that skill set, continue to learn, find a mentor, and speaking of mentors or mentoring, I just want to take a minute to welcome all of our newcomers to our community. And we really appreciate you taking the time to let us mentor you and each other. And if you haven't done so, we invite you and everyone to sign up for our mailing list so you can be the first one to find out about upcoming events, classes, free stuff when we have our shows. We collect minimal information. We don't share that information with anyone. You can also like and follow us on Facebook. And if you're on YouTube, you can subscribe and hit the bell icon and you'll get notified when we go live. So, please join our community and help us make it a place where, we can share our experiences, complain, create, all that fun stuff, and give each other a hand because it's all about helping each other. Okay, so let's get to tonight's final BA myth debunked in our top 3. The BA's job ends with the sign-off of requirements. She laughs. I wish someone had told me that at the beginning of my career. Why didn't they? Because it's not true. It's just not true at all. Maybe we're trying to perpetuate that myth ourselves so we don't have to do this stuff, but it wouldn't help us in any way. So this is the I thought you were done with that myth. That's what we're calling it. I thought you were done. That's a myth. We are sent out there to explore, but it's someone else's job, to finish everything up. Well, I can tell you from experience, and this is just a short list of all the additional things you would do and you want to do. You really want to do these extra steps. Because in doing them, you're going to gain more experience, more understanding of what it takes to get the job done. Excuse me. And it may provide you with additional information that you didn't have. Okay. So FYI, as a business analyst, you are going to support that requirement through the entire software development lifecycle. Yay! And you're sort of going in and out of it depending on the phase. It's not a constant thing, but you will be pulled back into it. Just when you thought you were out, they're going to pull you back into it. You're going to be doing, if this is a client-facing type piece of software, you could be doing client or user demos using wireframes or comps to initiate feedback from the client and to give them a heads up this is what's coming. You're going to be working closely and supporting development. They're going to have questions around the requirements, no matter how concise or clear those requirements are going to be. They may have questions that they need to ask, or things that they need to clarify, or things that, quite frankly, might not have been in the requirements that weren't thought of. And yes, that will happen, and it's okay. The more eyes looking on it, the better a product you'll have. You're going to be looking as they're developing, and validating that what they're creating, what the developers are creating, is against the requirements. It's an ongoing process. Is it meeting the requirements needs? What's going on. Don't jump to the conclusions too quickly, especially if they're still developing. But once it gets in past that development phase and more to the testing phase, you definitely want to take a look at it. You're going to support QA as they define the test cases. You need to walk them through that requirement so that they understand what they have to do and the test cases they're going to have to create, what type of information they're going to have to, data sets they're going to have to build in order to test this. You may facilitate the train the trainer classes if it's a bigger rollout of a bigger feature, or a big software application. You will probably participate in user training, or at least train the trainer classes. You'll participate in user acceptance testing. You may develop training materials, and you're definitely going to probably be there for post-production support of users if it's a big enough release. You're going to manage and create requirements for ongoing enhancements that are going to come out of the initial release and future release after that. And you're going to provide information for sales toolkits potentially, and promos. And look at that, I just got someone coming in from the wings. Storms and lightning coming into the area. Whoopee! God. So if you see my hair stand straight up, you'll know what's happening, or if we lose the connection. So apparently we're having a round of storms in the area. Okay. So as I was saying, you might be providing information for sales toolkits, promos. A lot of times, if your company's licensing a product, you might get involved in responding to requests for proposals, RFPs, or requests for information, RFIs. So there's a lot of different areas business analysts get involved in. Even though everybody wants to keep it, this big, it's really not. If you're a member of a team, it's a full court kind of press to get everything done. And that's okay. That's the actual fun of it. If I just had to sit there and do requirements and then send it off to somebody and let it go, it's sort of like, it doesn't feel like it's complete. You don't know how people are reacting and how well it's gone over, or how you can improve as a business analyst, because you're not going to get much feedback if you're not involved all the way through. Okay. So before we wrap up our show tonight, don't forget, if you have any comments, questions, or topics or future shows that you would like us to cover, just go to thebazone.com and drop us a line. We love, love, love hearing from you. Never get tired of that. And you can also find us in all the usual places. Kathleen will put that slide up for you. Obviously at thebazone.com is our site. Twitter at the BA Zone, Instagram.com, the BA Zone, Periscope.tv, the BA Zone, Facebook.com, the BA Zone, and YouTube.com, the BA Zone. Oh, and poor little Murphy. Oh, Kathleen just sent me a comment. Poor little Murphy. That Murphy is her dog, is shaking from head to toe. I wonder if that's, Kathleen just popped on. I just wonder if that's maybe the lightning coming. He's responding to that. Okay, so to wrap it up, when it comes to myths, it's all about perspectives. So let's summarize really quickly our top 3 business analyst myths. BAs are the anchor holding the ship back, right? An anchor doesn't hold you from moving forward. An anchor protects you from floating into dangerous, costly areas. BAs are note takers. Note takers or note taking is the source material of creativity. So go with it. And finally, when you're contemplating, I thought you were done with that myth, what you're really thinking is, just because I finished the requirements doesn't mean I have time for your crap. So, so on that note, thanks for joining everybody and coming out tonight and watching. Have a great a great night and a positive, productive week. And we'll see you next week on the BA's Online. Good night, everybody. Take care. Have a nice night.